Colleagues, last week during the Holocaust Remembrance Day resolution, this body made it clear in stating that if you forget the past, you're doomed to repeat it. So it kind of pains me that we're here right now on track to do just that this evening. It's also ironic that we're here debating this issue on the 5th day of Black History Month, on a month that some people today say we no longer need. Time and time again, I stand before this body as a minority trying to explain things that are discriminatory and somewhat with a racist tone for people like me, that look like me. So members, let me hold your hand and remind you of the history of when vouchers were created to resist integration. It is history that we are doomed to repeat because of the systematic erasure of DEI and critical race theory. In 1954, the Brown versus Board of Education, in many states in the South set up school voucher systems to allow white families to escape integration schools so that they can go back to their life under the Ferguson separate but equal. Think about that. States also began to defund public schools at that same time. Schools that served the children of color and closed down black schools, which eventually closed and crumbled black communities. Senator King, you used the principle that if it happens, then believe it can happen again. So hear me when I say to you, it will happen again. If we pass this voucher bill, let me repeat it, it can happen and it will happen again. School vouchers divert much needed funds from public schools, which serve as majority of the students. These schools are already underfunded, overburdened, outdated resources, and insufficiently funded and supported for students with special needs all day, every day. Vouchers only exacerbate the inequities of the public schools faces. Listen, leading to the future decline of quality education for students who cannot afford to leave the public system. Everybody won't be able to go to a private school, y'all. Please understand, the public school will close and the communities will fail. They will fail. Senator Hall, you said it's important that we don't forget the culture of hatred of the past. That was your word, sir, just the other week. However, at every turn, this body proposes and passes legislation that does just that. Forget the culture of hatred of the past. We forget about it. The question should be that we're all asking ourselves is why? And why now? Why are we bringing the ghost of segregation back to life today? We all know why. It's the political culture right now. The modus operandi of this country, as of late, has come down to party lines. Look at the bill today. It went right down party lines, which obviously is not excluding our great state of Texas. It comes down to who is the deepest pockets instead of what's best for the people and what's best for Texans. School choice is not a choice of the family. It's a choice by private schools to select who they want to allow in. There's no transparency. There's no security. There's no accountability. Private schools that accept vouchers are subject to the same level of oversight, are not subject to the same level of accountability as public schools. This means that they don't have to meet the same standards for our teacher certifications, curriculums, students' outcomes. For instance, this body passed the Crown Act last session, which was signed into law by the Governor Abbott, to prevent students from being discriminated against because of their hairstyle or the texture of their hair. By approving vouchers, we will be providing taxpayer funds to institutions that are not required to comply with the protection of these kids that we just worked hard to ensure for all those kids. Also, with public funds going to private institutions, there's little transparency about how effectively those funds are being spent. I hope that by now you have a map that they have passed out to you. The other day, I was looking at this map. This is a map of private schools in Harris County. So Bencourt, I want you to stay with me on this one. Is he here? Private schools in Harris County. This map right here, if you take 288 from the south to join 45 going north, straight through downtown and straight through the middle of Houston, Texas, and divide the city east and west, all the dots you see on the west side are private schools. On the west side, which is an affluent white community and white area. The little bitty dots, the few dots that you see on the east side are black and brown communities. Take a look at that. It's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. The west side is historically wealthy and predominantly white. Looking at this map, who do you think is going to benefit from this bill? I think it's pretty easy to see, easy to tell. These are the private schools that exist now in Harris County. Vouchers will widen the gap between the wealthy and the poor, as families with more resources are better able to take advantage of private school options. This can lead to increasingly segregated by race, class, and ability to undermine our efforts to create more equitable educational opportunities for all students. According to the National Education Association, in Arizona, only 5% of the students that took advantage of the state's voucher program came from zip codes where the medium income is at least $49,000 a year. The majority of the families that took advantage of the vouchers came from zip codes where the median income was between $81,000 and $178,000. So basically, the same map, different state. Further, in other states that have created voucher systems, the vast majority of recipients were already in private schools and had never attended public schools ever. In Arkansas, 95%, Florida, 69%, Iowa, 80%. Are we starting to see a pattern here? Do y'all start to understand a little pattern? Focusing on family income alone does not quite touch the central problem of this bill. Why are our tax dollars to pay for vouchers? What does it ever cover, even cover? It doesn't even cover the full cost. Private school tuition. The average private school tuition in Houston is $25,000. Where do you expect to get a working class family to making a household income of $35,000 to get the other $15,000? That's why it's not necessarily a low income benefit. It's definitely for a family of three, as up to almost $134,000 a year. It is the only way for legislation proponents to say with a straight face, we're helping low income families. The taxpayer money that we propose to use to fund these vouchers could go to much further if we focus on all our students rather than the 2% of our school children. The average public education teacher's salary is $57,000. If you divide that by 1 billion, the voucher appropriation by the average teacher salary, you get 17,000 teachers. TEA states that around 9,000 public schools and school campuses in Texas. So for the same amount of money, we could put at least one teacher in every public school in the state right now. Going further, by 2030, this program is expected to cost $4.6 billion. That's billion with a B. And that $4.6 billion, current average salary would equate to 79,000 teachers that we could pay for almost 9 new teachers in every public school in the state of Texas. In some rural communities, that's a full school. 9 teachers? Let me bring it a little local to Harris County. What happens if only one kid in Harris County in HISD district participates in the program, the district will lose more than $15 million per year. That equates to a salary of 234 HISD teachers. HISD has 274 campuses. So that's a loss of almost one teacher at every campus. And I'm willing to bet that instead of the one teacher at every campus, the district will save money by merging schools instead. This could put teachers directly in danger of losing their jobs, y'all. Think about it. If we pass this legislation, we'll be robbing around 98% of our children's futures in public schools. Possibly even schools to make sure that around 2% of the children get a private school education. So we're going to sacrifice all this for 2% of our children in the state of Texas can get a private education. Texas education will be two-tiered, separate, but I guarantee you it'll be unequal. I believe we should fund our public schools for all children of Texas by raising the basic allotment before we even consider additional handouts for our wealthy. How can we guarantee the pension of existing retired teachers? Common sense, just strictly common sense, says that if there are less teachers contributing to the pension, the only way to keep the pension stable without costing taxpayers more money and is the hope of population growth, or take more contributions from existing teachers. We could not in good conscience put teachers in a situation without seriously investing in them every biennial from here on out. I just want to say this out loud and make sure it's sound, because it sounds really perplexed in my head. We're going to give Texas taxpayers, affluent families across the state of Texas in cities like Houston and Dallas and our rural areas, that national statistics already say those kids are probably already in private school. $10,000 for private tutors, for SAT prep, transportation, and other ancillary items. Also, let me repeat, look at the fiscal note, $4.6 billion per year by 2030. We're going to spend $4.6 billion by 2030 on SAT preps, private tutors, transportation, and other ancillary services. This makes no sense in my head. I don't know about anybody else's. If we go through this with this program, we'll grow to cover about 8% of the students by 2030. What's going to be left of the 92,000? We're designing a separate but definitely unequal system by which we will all cost the state more money and resources. We're deciding between the haves and the have-nots. All we have to do is invest in our people. I repeat, the greatest strength that I always sit up here and say that Texas has is its people and its diversity. Texas has relied time and time again on the strength of the people and its diversity. All of our districts may look different, their needs may be different, but one common thread that they all desire to have: equity and equality when it comes to the teaching of our children. That's all anybody can ask for, because quality education has always proven to be the great equalizer. I'm sure that history is going to show that this body has created a separate but unequal education structural system and made it law by sacrificing the masses for the very few. Highlighting all the negative consequences of the vouchers and ESAs our public education system and long-term society impacts may have. Diverting public funds to private schools through vouchers and ESAs undermines the very system that guarantees the right for every child. Just as we would not tolerate erosion of acceptance or any other public provision, we should not implement policies that weaken the public education system and limit opportunities for every student who needs them the most. The students who need them the most, we're getting ready to limit the opportunities. In the end, school vouchers and ESAs will make it harder for all students to succeed because of its educational inequalities it creates. That's why I will be voting no. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Blanco, what purpose?